So why would people have been trying to counterfeit Gilbey's gin? Hello and welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon. Bottle number 78 is Gilbey's gin. It's the first gin I found in Grandma's collection, and I am excited to try it, even though it shows some signs of evaporation. According to the label, this bottle was produced by Gilbey Canada Limited and is 1.6 fluid ounces. Canada went metric for packaging in 1976, so it's from before then. It's also in a frosted glass bottle, which was a design that Gilbey's introduced during US Prohibition to fend off counterfeiters, and that didn't change until 1975. So I can definitely say pre-1975 for this bottle. So why would people have been trying to counterfeit Gilbey's gin? Gilbey was an early and important English gin brand. The company's roots go back to 1857 when two brothers, Walter and Alfred Gilbey, returned from the Crimean War and set up a wine importing business in London. They specialized in good but cheap wines from South Africa, and soon business was booming, letting them expand throughout the United Kingdom. Then, in 1872, they opened up a new headquarters in Camden Town in London and began producing gin there. The gin became popular too, and they started exporting it around the world, including to Canada beginning in 1906. Gin is made by starting with neutral spirits and redistilling them with a variety of botanicals, most importantly juniper, so it's relatively easy to produce. As Gilbey's gin became popular in Canada and the United States, their Canadian sales manager, C.P. Douglas, suggested they should build a dedicated distillery in Canada to serve those markets. It would be much more efficient than shipping gin across the Atlantic. The US, though, put a crimp in those plans when it enacted Prohibition and put an end to the US gin import market for a while, or at least the legal gin import market. Gilbey's gin was still exported to just outside the 12-mile limit off the coast of the US, and from there transferred to bootleggers and rum runners who imported it into the country. Because the quality and reliability of gin plummeted during Prohibition, if you wanted to avoid the kind of gin that would at best be flavored with Listerine and at worst actually poison you, then it was good to try to buy a brand name you knew and trusted from your bootlegger. Which is why Gilbey's was so frequently copied and counterfeited during Prohibition that they had to take countermeasures. They started packaging the real stuff in a square-sided bottle with three sides sandblasted to create a frosted glass effect. As I said in the beginning, that style lasted until 1975, and you can see it on this tiny bottle. Meanwhile, Canadian sales manager C.P. Douglas must have figured that Prohibition wasn't going to last, and he finally convinced his higher-ups to go forward with the plan to build a Canadian distillery. Construction began in 1931 in Toronto, and the gin began to flow just a few months before Prohibition ended in 1933. They didn't stick just to gin for long and started distilling whiskey in 1946. In 1951, they launched one of Canada's most famous whiskey brands, Black Velvet. The success of that product, and Canadian whiskey in general during the mid-century period, led them to open a second distillery in Alberta in 1973. That distillery, and Gilbey's of Canada, has come up before in my episode about the ill-fated lemon liqueur, Bottle 46, Mandalay. Another outlet of Gilbey's in South Africa was responsible for the creation of Bottle 71, Malibu rum. And yet another in Ireland was behind Bailey's Irish Cream. Like most of the companies I've talked about on My Tiny Bottles, Gilbey's would go on to be bought and sold again during the consolidation of the liquor industry. But regardless of who owns them now, they do still make a Gilbey's gin, so I'm looking forward to doing a side-by-side comparison when I get around to tasting this one. Are you a Gilbey's fan? Drop a comment below or at My Tiny Bottles on Instagram or Facebook or at TammyLC on Blue Sky. Leave some likes, follows, and subscribes behind you as you go. Check out my Patreon for bonus content and special perks, and visit mytinybottles.com for more on this bottle and all the bottles. Cheers!